The number one mistake we see marketers make here is that they pitch AI tooling as a direct replacement for someone's job.
Welcome to the first episode of TLDR Trends. In this monthly series, we go over the questions: what are TLDR readers actually engaging with? And why should marketers care? My name is Chris. I lead marketing at TLDR, and I'm here with TLDR's founder, Dan. Dan, welcome to TLDR Trends.
Excited to be here.
Let's get right into it. We have three big topics today. Let's start with the tech job market. Dan, why has this been getting so much attention lately?
Yeah, so one of the most popular articles from the past month in TLDR was called The Great Decoupling of Labor and Capital. And what this article talks about is how big tech companies today are so much more efficient than big tech companies of the past. So HP was the first big tech company to get to 100 billion in annual revenue, and it took them 172,000 employees to get there. IBM was next, and it took them 400,000 employees to get there. Now look at this chart for Alphabet. So Alphabet got to 100 billion in annual revenue with just 76,000 employees. And then the next 100 billion took 64,000 additional employees. Then the next 100 billion took 42,000 additional employees. And the most recent 100 billion took only 11,000 incremental employees. So I mean, you can see charts like this for all the other big tech companies, right? And today's big tech companies are just so much more efficient than the tech companies in the past. Um, Relatedly, Amazon announced the biggest corporate layoffs in company history, laying off 30,000 corporate workers. Microsoft laid off 15,000 corporate workers earlier this year, and Meta and Google did layoffs too, right? So there are a few reasons for these layoffs. All these companies overhired during COVID. And as you can see from this chart, Amazon doubled its headcount in just 2 years during COVID. In 2019, they had about 750,000 employees, and the number of employees at Amazon actually peaked in 2021 at 1.6 million and decreased slightly since then. So their CEO, Andy Jassy, came out and said, basically we need to remove layers of management to move faster. And he wants to operate like the world's biggest startup. The other elephant in the room here is obviously AI, right? CEOs don't love going around doing layoffs and then saying that AI is the root cause, but there are a lot of signs that AI is already impacting employment at these big tech companies. Google and Microsoft have both said that AI is now writing over 30% of the code at their companies. And Shopify's CEO wrote this famous leaked memo this past April where he basically said, you have to justify why AI can't do a job before you're allowed to hire a human to do the job. So when you talk to people that work here in the Bay Area, basically anyone will tell you that their teams are being told, you have to use AI and run a lot leaner than you currently are.
What's the biggest takeaway here for marketers?
The number one mistake we see marketers make here is that they pitch AI tooling as a direct replacement for someone's job. You see this all over the place. And this is like, this is your AI SDR, this is your AI marketer, yada, yada. And the problem with this is if you pitch your tool as directly replacing somebody's job, that somebody is going to do everything in their power to fight you, right? Because the tooling isn't necessarily there yet. They're going to win that fight. So where we've seen marketers have success is when they pitch AI tools as automating tasks and not jobs. This is a much better frame because not only does this more accurately reflect the ability of the tools, it also paints your tool as a benefit and not as a threat, right? Like everybody has parts of their job that are just boring and time consuming. And if an AI agent can do your data entry or organize your emails and write you a draft, like who would say no to that? And that's kind of the framing that you should be using when you're pitching AI tools.
Let's move on to the next topic, which is AGI timelines. Dan, why don't we start off with what is AGI?
AGI is an acronym for artificial general intelligence. So AI, today's version of AI, is probably more general than the AI of the 90s, where you had these AI systems that were just built to play chess. Now they can do all sorts of things like write you emails, and do calculations and all that sort of stuff. But only recently have they been able to count the number of R's in the word strawberry, famously, right? So I think that we still have a ways to go before we reach true AGI, where an AI system is able to do everything at a human level or above. So this is a huge topic in Silicon Valley right now because, there's a lot of debate as to how long it'll take us to reach AGI. One of the most popular stories from the past month in TLDR was this tweet thread by Andrej Karpathy, Andre Karpathy, for those of you who don't know, is one of the co-founders of OpenAI. He was formerly head of AI at Tesla, and he's just one of these universally respected AI researchers. And he basically said, guys, I actually think AGI is 10 years out. And instead of this being the year of agents, like a lot of people would love to have you believe, this is actually the decade of agents, meaning that the rollout of AI is going to go much slower than a lot of people think. And this really struck a chord in Silicon Valley because as crazy as that sounds, that's actually 10 years to get to AGI is actually very bearish compared to what most people in frontier labs like OpenAI and Anthropic believe. So, relatedly, Anthropic CEO sort of publicly predicted that we would reach AGI in early 2027, right? If you look at this chart, this is the chart that a lot of people look at when they're talking about AGI timelines. It's how long an LLM can work autonomously on a software engineering job while getting it right 50% of the time, right? So when GPT-4 came out, it was able to do tasks that were, 2, 3, 5 minutes long, with a 50% success rate. Now fast forward to GPT-5, Claude Sonnet 4.5, Grok 4, like this new generation of frontier models can work for hours autonomously and perform software engineering tasks with a 50% success rate. So, I mean, if you look at this curve, it's just continually going up at a very rapid rate, right? So, what's interesting about Silicon Valley intellectual culture that's quite a big departure from the general public is that the default expectation when you're looking at a chart like this is to extrapolate the chart, right? Like if a number is going up in this line, you just expect the line to continue. So while the conversation outside of Silicon Valley is kind of like, do you think this AI progress is going to continue? The sort of default within Silicon Valley is to say, just look at the line. Obviously, it's going up. And really, the debate about AGI timelines is, do you think that AI itself will increase the rate of AI research, right? Like when AI researchers and engineers are able to use the AI tools they're building, does that mean that this curve is going to start sloping upwards, or is it just going to continue in a linear fashion?
Why should marketers care about the AGI timeline?
Yeah, so I think the big takeaway from marketers here is that, if it's truly the decade of agents and not the year of agents, you know, I think the feeling is maybe we've sort of passed the peak of the hype cycle for AI agents, and people have a much more sober view today than they did 6 months ago about what's actually possible with today's technology. And I think over the next few months, we may start seeing signs of agent fatigue, where taglines like your AI sales agent or your AI design agent won't work as well as they have over the past 6 months. And I don't think that the underlying idea behind AI agents will go away by any means, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 to 5 years we're using a different buzzword to describe an AI that goes off and does work with minimal supervision and then checks in with you when it needs help.
Let's move on to our last topic. What can you tell me about AI and software engineering?
Yeah, so one place where the AI tools are really, really working is in software engineering. And the reason AI works so well for coding is because coding is one task where AI is able to easily check its own answers just by running the code. So we're able to train AI to be great at coding much more quickly than we can train it to be great at tasks like writing poetry, where it can't easily check the quality of its own work. And because these AI coding tools work so well, developers have adopted these tools en masse. Over 20 million people have tried GitHub Copilot alone. And a lot of the fastest growing AI companies like Cursor, like Claude Code, they are developer tools. So a lot of developers are talking and writing articles about how their workflows and just their day to day is changing because of these AI tools. One really popular article was about running parallel AI agents, right? So in the GPT-3 era, you would talk to engineers about how they would sort of use these tools, and it would almost always be as like a really, really good autocomplete. And fast forward to today's models that can sort of, work autonomously on small tasks, 5, 10 minutes, half an hour. And, you see a lot of articles about how engineers are becoming more like engineering managers. And instead of working in this very linear way, like writing some code and then like submitting it for review, you're actually just giving a bunch of requirements to these AI agents. Um, they're working in parallel, and then you're essentially acting like an engineering manager, and you're doing code reviews for your AI agents. And so I think that this is just a totally new style of working. That's just very different for IC software engineers. Another interesting article in this area was an article called Designing APIs for Vibe Coding. And vibe coding, for those of you who don't know, is basically a way of coding where you let the AI run as autonomously as possible with minimal supervision. There's a setting on a lot of these AI coding tools that's just basically accept all changes, right? And you can kind of just trust the AI tool to do its thing. And everyone that's used an AI tool knows that they hallucinate, right? They make stuff up. And when it comes to coding, this is hugely problematic because the AI will write code for API endpoints that literally don't exist. So this article basically talks about how if you want to optimize your APIs for vibe coding, you should actually design your APIs so that they work in the way that AI tools imagine they should work. And the big takeaway here is that you should conform as much as possible to similar other APIs, right? Like the LLMs are going to be trained on other APIs, and so you should just make it work the sort of as similarly as possible to those old APIs. And as a check, you should actually ask all the major LLMs how they imagine the API should look before you even start designing it, right? You should ask ChatGPT, ask Gemini, ask Claude, like, hey, how would you design this API? And they'll just tell you how they imagine it should work.
What tips do you have marketers that are marketing a dev tool?
More so than other categories, in the developer world, every part of the stack is being rethought because developers are fundamentally changing their architectures and their day to day workflows. Also, AI is going to be making a lot more of the vendor selection decisions as developers delegate more and more decision making to AI agents. So, tools that are friendly and familiar to LLMs are already seeing insane adoption. If you look at this chart, for example, Superbase's journey to 3 million developers, right? Like you can see the curve where on the curve where basically ChatGPT is sort of recommending Supabase as a default option, right? And so any tool that's being sort of selected by default by the LLMs are just going vertical as they're automatically added to millions of new projects.
Before we wrap up, let me ask you a couple of questions that all TLDR advertisers would be interested in. What trends are you seeing with the most successful TLDR ads?
Looking through the most successful ads of the past month in TLDR, what we're finding is that marketers pitching AI tools with very explicit use cases are getting the best results. So, a really common user experience with AI tools is for the landing page to tell you, this thing can kind of basically do anything you want. It's a truly general lawyer or designer or whatever. The advertisers that are seeing the most success are actually being really, really prescriptive about what the hero use cases are, right? And guiding users to where they see the most value.
Outside of AI, what other topics are TLDR readers engaging with?
That's a great question. So, we're actually seeing a lot of engagement with real world use cases for crypto. A couple of the really popular ones are prediction markets and stablecoins. So, prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi are going vertical with tons of attention driven by election betting and stuff like that. And recently, the New York Times' parent company just signed on to invest up to $2 billion into Polymarket. And the valuation kind of made Polymarket's founder the youngest billionaire in the world. Stablecoins are getting adopted by big financial institutions like JP Morgan, PayPal, Bank of America, Stripe. Like all of these big legacy financial institutions are starting to get involved because they're seeing how quickly and cheaply they can move money around. Tether, the biggest stablecoin by market cap, is actually rumored to be raising capital at a $500 billion valuation. So I think we'll see more and more at the intersection of crypto and traditional finance in the very near future.
Thanks for joining us, Dan, and thanks to everyone that's watching. If you're interested in advertising with us, reach out to partnerships@tldr.tech, or if you want to ask Dan a question, send them over to trends@tldr.tech. Thanks again.